I gave them my entire life. I raised them, protected them, and loved them as if they were my own children. But one cold afternoon, I discovered something that shattered my heart forever. I had become a stranger to the very grandchildren I sacrificed everything for. My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm 68 years old, and I live in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. If you saw me today, sitting quietly on my porch with a cup of coffee in my hands, you'd probably think I've lived a peaceful life. But appearances can be deceiving. 22 years ago, my daughter Emily became a mother at a very young age. She struggled financially and emotionally. When her marriage fell apart, she moved across the country searching for work and stability. That's when I stepped in. Her children, Ethan and Sophie, were only 3 and 5 years old. I told myself it would be temporary. A few months, maybe a year. But months turned into years. Years turned into decades. And before I knew it, I had devoted the best years of my life to raising those children. I woke up every morning before sunrise to make their breakfasts. I attended parent-teacher conferences. I helped with homework. I sat through soccer games, school concerts, and endless doctor appointments. When they cried, I comforted them. When they succeeded, I celebrated louder than anyone. I wasn't just their grandmother. I became their mother. At least, that's what I believed. Money was always tight. After my husband Robert passed away from cancer, I used much of our savings to keep the household running. There were years when I skipped buying new clothes for myself so Ethan could attend summer camp. I postponed repairing my leaking roof so Sophie could have dance lessons. Every sacrifice felt worth it because I loved them more than words could describe. As they grew older, they often told me, "Grandma, we don't know what we'd do without you." Those words meant everything. I believed our bond was unbreakable. Then life began changing. Ethan graduated college and moved to Chicago. Sophie accepted a job in Seattle. I was proud of them. Of course I was. I had spent years preparing them for successful futures. What I wasn't prepared for was what happened next. At first, the phone calls became less frequent. Then the visits became shorter. Birthdays were forgotten. Holiday plans changed. Excuses multiplied. They've got busy lives, I told myself. But deep down, an uncomfortable feeling began growing inside me. Something was wrong. And one rainy Tuesday afternoon, a single social media post revealed a painful truth I never saw coming. A truth that would leave me completely alone. That rainy Tuesday started like any other. I was sitting in my living room, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through Facebook while the sound of rain tapped softly against the windows. I hadn't spoken to Ethan in nearly 3 weeks. Sophie hadn't returned my last 2 phone calls. I kept telling myself not to worry. They were adults now. They had careers, responsibilities, and lives of their own. Still, the silence felt heavier with every passing day. As I scrolled through my news feed, a photo suddenly appeared on my screen. It was Ethan. Sophie was standing beside him. Around them were several cousins, friends, and other relatives. Everyone was smiling. The caption read, "Family Reunion 2024. So grateful for everyone who came." I stared at the screen. Family reunion? Nobody had told me anything about a family reunion. I looked closer. The gathering was taking place only 40 minutes from my home. 40 minutes. My hands began to shake. At first, I thought there had to be some mistake. Maybe it was a last-minute event. Maybe they forgot to tell me. Maybe. But then I noticed dozens of photos. Pictures from the entire weekend. Barbecues. Games. Group dinners. Family photos. Everyone had been invited. Everyone except me. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I sat there staring at those smiling faces while tears slowly rolled down my cheeks. The grandchildren I had raised. The children I had sacrificed everything for. They had gathered with the entire family and never once thought to call me. That evening, I finally gathered enough courage to call Sophie. She answered after several rings. Her voice sounded distracted. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Sophie, sweetheart." I saw the reunion pictures. There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "Oh." Just one word. "Oh."
No apology. No explanation.
Nothing. I swallowed hard. Why wasn't I invited? Another silence. Finally, she spoke. It wasn't really my decision. What does that mean? Some people thought it would be awkward. Awkward. The word echoed in my mind. After everything I had done, my presence was considered awkward. I could barely breathe. Awkward for who? Sophie hesitated. Then she said something I'll never forget. Grandma, people feel like you're always reminding everyone about the past. We just wanted a stress-free weekend. I felt as if the floor disappeared beneath me. The past? The years I spent raising them? The sacrifices? The sleepless nights? The school pickups? The medical bills? The birthdays I planned? The tears I wiped away? Was that now considered a burden? A source of stress? I ended the call shortly afterward because I could no longer hold back my tears. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen until nearly 3 a.m. For the first time in 22 years, I forced myself to ask a painful question. Had they ever truly loved me? Or had they simply loved what I did for them? The answer arrived 2 weeks later, and it would hurt even more than being excluded from the reunion. Because this time, they weren't just forgetting me. They wanted something from me. Something that would finally reveal how little I meant to them. What they really wanted. The 2 weeks after that phone call were some of the loneliest days of my life. I stopped expecting my phone to ring. I stopped checking my messages every hour. Little by little, I began accepting a truth I had spent years refusing to see. The grandchildren I loved so deeply were building lives that no longer included me. Then one Saturday morning, my phone suddenly lit up. It was Ethan. For a brief moment, my heart filled with hope. Maybe he missed me. Maybe he had heard about my conversation with Sophie. Maybe he wanted to make things right. I answered immediately. Ethan. Hey, Grandma. His voice was cheerful, almost unusually cheerful. We exchanged a few minutes of small talk before he finally got to the point. Grandma, Sophie and I have been discussing something. The hope inside me slowly faded. I knew that tone. People use it when they want something. What is it? I asked. Well, we were thinking about your house. My stomach tightened. The house. The little Ohio home that Robert and I had worked our entire lives to own. The same house where Ethan and Sophie had grown up. The same house where I had raised them. What about it? I asked quietly. Ethan cleared his throat. We think it would be smart to put the property into our names now. It would save complications later. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. I simply sat there staring at the kitchen wall. After weeks of silence, after forgetting my birthday, after excluding me from a family reunion, this was why he was calling. Not because he missed me, not because he cared, because he wanted my house. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Whose idea was this? I asked. Sophie agrees. We both think it's best. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. For years I had ignored warning signs. For years I had excused behavior that hurt me. But in that moment, everything became crystal clear. They weren't calling because they loved me. They were calling because they saw me as an asset, a property owner, an inheritance, a future financial opportunity. Nothing more. When I politely told Ethan I wasn't interested, his attitude changed immediately. The warmth disappeared from his voice. The conversation became cold, short, uncomfortable. We ended the call a few minutes later. I sat silently at the kitchen table. Oddly enough, I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry either. For the first time in years, I saw the situation exactly as it was. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. That afternoon, I drove to a nearby park. Children were laughing. Families were spending time together. Life was moving forward. As I watched the people around me, I made a decision. If my grandchildren no longer wanted me in their lives unless they needed something, then I would stop living my life waiting for their attention. I had spent 22 years taking care of everyone else. Now it was time to take care of myself. What happened after that decision changed everything. Because the woman they thought would remain lonely and dependent was about to build a life they never expected. And when they finally realized what they had lost, it would already be too late. Margaret decided to keep the house in her own name and stop living her life for people who only remembered her when they needed something. Instead of waiting for phone calls that never came, she began focusing on herself for the first time in over 20 years. She joined a local community center, made new friends, volunteered at a children's literacy program, and even took trips she had always dreamed about but never allowed herself to take. Little by little, the loneliness that had once consumed her was replaced by purpose and peace. Months passed. One day, Ethan and Sophie learned that their grandmother was no longer sitting at home waiting for them. She had built a full, happy life without them. The realization hit them harder than they expected. For the first time, they began to understand everything she had sacrificed for them. Eventually, they came to visit her. There were tears, awkward silences, and heartfelt apologies. "Grandma," Sophie whispered, "we were selfish. We took you for granted. We're so sorry." Ethan lowered his head. "We spent so much time chasing our own lives that we forgot the person who gave us one." Margaret listened quietly. The pain they had caused could never be erased, but neither could the love she had carried for them all those years. She chose to forgive them, not because they deserved it, but because she deserved peace. Then she looked at them and said words they would never forget. "Love is a gift, but appreciating that gift is a choice. Never wait until someone is gone to realize what they meant to you." Neither Ethan nor Sophie could hold back their tears. That day, they finally understood that the greatest loss is not money, property, or inheritance. The greatest loss is taking someone's love for granted until it's too late. As for Margaret, she no longer measured her happiness by who called or visited. She had rediscovered her strength, her independence, and her worth. And for the first time in many years, she felt truly at peace.